speed argument. Why not? Hello?
need to have a TV on CNN in my ambient vision.
So what
So
I
at the
can
least-
do for you is probably...
Because I could glance, that's on CNN.
No, what I can actually do is I can change this here. Rahul, do me a favor. Turn on the... I'll show you how this is going to work. I think I'm going to be able to make it right out of me.
Because it's not bad if mine is my main camera here when I'm talking to John?
Yeah, that's you.
Because I could just see it, and if we have, those two are fine because they're my ambient vision.
No. I'm going to use my best.
Okay, all right, I will go with that. I appreciate it.
I will make you happy then. Yeah, we can. Yeah, thank you. The world?
I'm gonna go change.
All right, go change, and I'll show you what
Because the other
I've
thing
set up
is,
for
I
you.
need a place to put my papers and stuff, so maybe I'll just put it here. If I could make it higher. And I need a place for my laptop. Where would I be working my laptop from?
It's going to have to go on your lap unless I can get...
Okay. Oh.
I read through it and I was just kind of like, this is going to be long. It is. But you made it
Do you want less?
I know, that's something. You over 700. That's the you would
Okay. I mean, again, if in the purpose of time, I'm happy with these two over here.
I'm going to get you, not going to make it happen.
No, this is fine.
I know it's fine, but it's not what I want.
Marcus, do I have a laptop up there?
You can, but it has to go on your lap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I do want to try that. Wait, where are we going to be sitting? Oh, we're going to be...
Yep.
Good to know. That would be
10 to 8, I'm gonna get a call from BBC Radio,
Okay.
where they wanna know what the Sun-Times is doing. I'm gonna take the call live on our show. I'm just gonna hold my cell phone to my,
You should ask Carol about
ear
this.
phone. And if they can't hear me well at the BBC, I will just hand it off to John to,
Yeah. Alright,
talk to me.
let's fix that. Figure out what's wrong. Why is this? Oh, you did, okay. Oh, probably should be. Right here. Yeah. It should be set. Okay, good. Good.
Marcus?
Yeah.
Do you prefer one of these? You guys?
I do not have strong feelings, but
Okay.
red power ties always do well on TV.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Bet. Small and passive. Need cat find cable. Alright, button C for 2 minutes. chair for your table like Lynn has?
Yeah, that could be, I'll go get that.
We did one creative.
Thank you. were you just here now, Fox News?
Oh.
It'd just be a curious thing to talk about.
Yeah, let me see if I can find on their website.
They look nice, so nice. I like the red color.
IFB Lynn.
Marcus,
Go get it.
do you have my phone? Marcus?
Oh. I thought you were gonna use your other phone. You have two phones.
Oh, I do. Okay, so that's what you come to
Yeah.
talk. Okay. We're not starting till 7:30, right?
Nope. I just get everybody in place so that we don't have to.
Yes.
Because last time.
It's funny, this time it's like going to work at home, because it's been watching. Okay, so Scott sent a note that Barrett's not in DC, so that other story.
Excellent.
Oh, do you have that Time magazine? Select?
No, it's in my office.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to run it, it's usually
Put this in back.
Okay. Alex?
Do you prefer to hear Lynn?
Right here, please.
Got it.
Alex, could you do us one more favor? Could you come here as we're expecting? I never, I did this Zello thing, so.
Yes, you did.
I did? I
You're
didn't
good.
do it.
Oh, I did it for you.
In what, whose
It's on this
office?
side.
Hi, there's a Time magazine in the office that,
It's Mark Frank made it.
yeah, if you could bring it in, that would be
Sorry,
great.
where is it?
Tuck this in.
There's an office down there. It says Frank made an Andy Grimm on it.
I don't hear anything?
You shouldn't.
Okay.
I'll give you a quick
Are
test.
show?
What?
Are
No.
they shut? Oh, I'm
No, your feet are
sorry. Only
on the
because
show.
my, let's see.
We're hearing a lot about that.
Alright, Lynn, can you hear me?
No. No, okay, there's a time delay.
There's a short delay.
Okay. can
Is
I
it too
turn
loud,
it
too
a
quiet?
little louder,
A
please?
little bit louder? Yeah, you got it.
Where did I just put? Thank you, thank you.
Oopsies. Sorry about that. Okay. Test again.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good, you sound great.
Okay, good.
Oh, that's-
It's interesting to look on Twitter, and I don't know how many of these are official, but things are pointing every which way, even still to Barrett.
Part of me here is saying that this is.
People seem to think it's Kavanaugh.
She's in.
Lynn, are you using Zello?
Yeah, she is.
I retweeted.
Low, low, low. Can you hear me?
No.
You gotta hold it a lot closer to your mouth.
Low, low, low. Oh, I can't hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Low, low, low.
The loose.
And then it says.
Oh, well, come out here if you need to see if you want to tell me anything.
Are you hearing anything?
No.
You can use mine.
Should I be hearing anything?
No.
Usually, I mean, I don't know if it's super critical for us to be able to talk to each other. It would be nice. Durbin was just on today, do you know these remarks he made? He said that it's more important for the Democrats to block this nominee than it is
To win the Democratic race in states.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, then I
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
I mean, that's honestly one of the questions that what could the Democrats honestly do? Other than delay, delay, delay.
Ask me that. Okay,
Yeah, I
here's
will.
why I want
I
you to
will.
ask me that. I really want you to in the first half hour, because what they want to do is get a fallback trust. Because if this price, John, represents the most reliable conservative ideal
shot. Camera 3, John is not even in the shot. This is camera 3, right? Marcus?
Quiet.
Hello from the Chicago Sun-Times, live from the newsroom in Chicago's West Loop. I'm Lynn with Washington Bureau Chief of the Chicago Sun-Times. I'm joined tonight by John Seidel, who is the Sun-Times Federal Courts reporter. We're standing by waiting for the announcement from President Donald Trump in the White House on who he's chosen as his nominee for the Supreme Court. Here are the four people who are pretty much considered to be on the short list. Amy Coney Barrett, who's the federal appellate court judge who sits in Chicago, and three others: Brett Kavanaugh, Raymond Kepler, and Thomas Harding. Now, John, we're going to find out at the top of the hour, and we'll be showing that, who Trump is picking. You know, there are some reports right now that Justices Thomas Hardiman and Brett Kavanaugh have the inside track, but because Amy Barrett, Judge Barrett, is in Chicago, tell us a little bit about who she is and even how she got into contention.
Right. So Amy Barrett is kind of our hometown choice, although she kind of skyrocketed to the top of this list at the beginning of this. A real favorite of social conservatives. Seems to have fallen a little bit. But so she joined the appellate court here in Chicago in, I believe it was October, November last fall. Trump actually nominated her to the Seventh Circuit. She didn't have a judicial career before that. She spent most of her career as a law professor at Notre Dame, where she also went to college. She got into contention by being added to this list that President Trump put together with the help of the Federal Society. 25 folks he might nominate to the Supreme Court. She was on it. And when Justice Kennedy announced his retirement, she quickly became a favorite.
So that's interesting, and she's interesting in a lot of ways that even if she's not picked tonight, and some cable outlets are reporting on news organizations that she's not in Washington, which could be a big hit that she's not going to be picked. But right now we're discussing this as if there are, we don't know. But just, it was remarkable that somebody who's been on the bench less than a year is coming this close, even this close to being picked. And I think what's interesting about her now is that she is young, she's 46, and if she is picked, she will be the fourth female on the court. And here's just a point in Supreme Court history we can discuss. In the history of our nation, only 4 women have been on the Supreme Court. 3 of them are on it now. She will be the fifth pick.
And I think that was a big part of the reason that she was considered a favorite. I think for a lot of reasons, including some of the cases that could be at play here, swinging the balance here, I think people liked her for that.
So one of the things that we know that President Trump wanted was a reliable conservative than just consulting with Democrats, Republicans, and saying who might be an appointee. You know, with the Republican judge, you're going to get somebody who is too conservative. You're not going to get a liberal. But what do we know about Amy Barrett, Judge Barrett, that would get her on the list? And the Federalist Society is the most conservative lawyers and judges in the nation. What do we know about her that would make her a favorite of conservatives?
So it's interesting. Her record, of course, since she's been a judge for such a short period of time, she doesn't have very many opinions, just a handful since she joined the bench. But she's written a lot in law review articles, academic writing, and she has shown at least a willingness to consider overturning some long-standing precedents by the court. One thing that we've made note of is that in one law review article she talked about super precedents, the cases that no judge would ever overturn. Barbara Madison Province Board of Education. Notably, Roe versus Wade was not on that list. And she said that's because the public debate, the controversy has never abated. But still, she did not include that on that list.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. We talk about precedent here. Susan Collins is a Republican from Maine. She's one of the two senators, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska is the other one, who had said that they support abortion rights, and this court, the Trump court, could get a case dealing with abortion rights. We'll get to the politics of getting to 50 votes. So let's talk about precedent, because it seems every time you listen to a information break, and you're at your home, or to this getting break from the conversation, they say they'll respect precedent. But everyone out there, John and I, just a week and a half ago, wrote in this Janice case, which is an Illinois case, our neighborhood, it overturned precedent in 1977 with a 5-4 vote by all the judges on the court appointed by Republican presidents, including Neil Gorsuch, who wrote the book on precedents.
Right, just 2 weeks ago we saw this happen. So I mean, it's been interesting. There has been a lot of discussion both in the Janice case and just in researching Amy Barrett's background. And she seems to be more of an originalist. In other words, she seems to want to go back to the actual intention and the actual words used by the founders when deciding law, rather than letting precedent and perhaps what she thinks is a wrongly decided precedent get in the way.
So, if let's say she isn't picked tonight, and again, we have a Chicago-centric look at this because we're from Chicago. It seems, what do you think? Is she still on deck for the next pick? And, do you think Trump will get her?
It seems likely that he's going to get another pick. I mean, I think we're not quite halfway through the term, right? And the other justices, the sitting justices, are rather high in age. We've got some 80, 70-year-olds. So I would certainly think that there's a potential that if we see this process.
Hold on, I think there is something wrong with my microphone. Thank you, Marcus. Sure. Okay. Wait, so Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 85. Justice Stephen Breyer is 79. These are not kids.
No. And so, and I think that's why this was such a part of the argument during the 2016 campaign. The future of the Supreme Court kind of hung in the balance.
Well, no matter who is picked tonight, there is going to be a ferocious battle. Democrats, most Democrats, and every Democratic allied group is going to, and has already started, campaigns against confirmation of whoever Trump picks. In the balance, the future of Roe v. Wade, the landmark ruling that gave women the right to abortion. Also, the former President Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act. These are the two most cited cases, that could be issues that could be cases on this. So going back for a moment to finish the loop, if she is if Amy Barrett doesn't get it, do we agree? I think that she is on deck for a potential third pick for Trump, and so everything she does now is going to come under a lot of scrutiny, isn't it?
Potentially. I mean, if she's not picked, there's a reason she's not picked, and maybe that's because you can only pick one. I mean, I think there were some reports that her meeting with Trump didn't go well. She also has a very short record, but yes, I think people are going to be looking very closely at the opinions that she writes going forward. One case of note, we do have a sanctuary cities case. It's a kind of a feud that has gone on between Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the city of Chicago and Mayor Rahm Emanuel. That's going to get a consideration by the full court later this year. We'll probably be watching to see if she has any commentary on that or any other interesting issues that can come
on it. So, do you have a sense on this in terms of her legal writings? Did you glean anything from it? If by chance you had a chance to digest it, is she known for a turn of the phrase? Is she considered particularly analytical? She does have an academic background.
No, I mean, I think what we talked about before, what comes out just the most is kind of her discussion about precedents. She's also was involved, I believe she was a co-author of a law review article that talked about whether Catholic judges should excuse themselves from capital cases, and that's something she has talked about. But she's also made clear that she doesn't believe faith or any other personal belief should be applied to the law. I think those are some of the issues that stuck out the most.
So you are the legal scholar, and I cover politics. So one of the things that President Trump has to be confronted with is who can get confirmation. So let me explain it a little. You might
Yeah,
have some
please.
questions for me. It's not easy to get to 50. Right now, Republicans have 51 seats to 49 votes that Democrats have. Senator John McCain, the Arizona Republican, has been very ill. So for practical purposes, it's 50-49. That means the Republicans can only lose one vote. Any one Republican holds a lot of sway in the process. If it's 50-50, by the way, Vice President Pence comes in, and he is the tie-breaking vote. So
what can the Democrats do? I know you talked about it before. I mean, that is one question that I have. I mean, we seem to be gearing up for a big Supreme Court confirmation battle, but what power do Democrats really have here?
well, first of all, number one, to keep power, they have to first see if they can keep all the Democrats together. Now, there are 3 red state Democratic senators who are up for election this year. Senator Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota, Senator Joe Manchin in West Virginia, and Senator Joe Donnelly of Indiana. So, by the way, if Amy Barrett, who's from Indiana, Notre Dame law prof, her husband works there as a prosecutor, and she lives in Indiana, it would be hard to be no. So Trump has been focusing on these 3 red state blue senators. Already Demand Justice, which is the umbrella group, the name for all the Democratic actors, have put millions of dollars into ads that either have run or will run at trying to bolster Heitkamp, Manchin, and Donnelly to say no, to stay with the group, because then you only need one. And then there's something called the Judicial Crisis Network, which is a group of Republican-allied groups, and they've also been targeting these red state Democrats. So it is really a campaign focused on Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine, the 2 Republican women who support abortion rights, and these 3 Democrats to see, because Trump's going to try and pick one off. Now, depending on who the pick is, there are other Republicans that may have issues with another pick. So the march to 50 is not as easy or as clear as you may think, because any one Republican can, in a sense, hold the veto power.
And even if they do block the Republicans from getting to 50, and Trump just gets to pick again, and the process starts all over. So right. I mean, so then what is achieved?
So why bother?
Yeah.
Here's what it could do. Some of our viewers may remember the wildly contentious fight over a judge by the name of Robert Bork. He eventually never even got to a vote he was nominated as a Supreme Court justice, because he was not considered, he was considered, maybe I'm saying it a little inexact, too extreme. So the idea may be if these 4 finalists represent the most ideologically reliable conservatives, as opposed to just conservative judges, because there's a distinction here, then the second choice of Trump, as he looks for 50 votes, might be not as ideologically firm. Maybe there's a chance. Now, why is this important? Well, the judge that is retiring at the end of July, Anthony Kennedy, who was appointed by former President Ronald Reagan, it turned out, as the decades have gone by, that he turned out to be a swing vote, especially on same-sex marriage and some social issues. In another case, reaffirming abortion. Now, he was a reliable vote with conservatives, certainly on that famous Bush v. Gore 2000 case, and some others, but he was the swing vote. That's, given everything, that's not a bad outcome for Democrats to have at least somebody who you think will not solidify the conservative hold on the court.
Slow the march to the right on the court.
Right.
Okay.
So let me just say one thing, because we're expecting the White House to announce President Trump to come to the East Room of the White House in just about 15 minutes. Now, in a few minutes, I will probably be getting a call from the BBC radio. So I don't want everyone to think rude. The reason I'll be taking this call is that this is a program where the BBC is curious on what other newspapers are reporting. And we'll talk with them as we do our show and they do their show. I'll be kind of crude. I'll be talking on here, and I hope it works, where they will want to know what our big story is. And for us, our big story tonight is the Supreme Court. As it is, I think, throughout the nation, because this is going to be on every cable channel. This is going to be an amazing presence on every multi-social platform that there is. And there's a lot going on. There are already groups at the Supreme Court, you know, people who are going to support the president, people who are going to protest the president, that are already staged and ready on the steps of the Supreme Court to start what will be a pitched battle.
Do you think if the Democrats, and please let me know if you get your phone call,
Yeah.
if Democrats are somehow successful in blocking this pick, I mean, would that be enough for the president to veer from the list that he made, that was such a big part of his campaign?
So I'm not sure. So the Federalist Society served, in a sense, the leader of it served as an informal advisor to Trump. It's not how it's done. Now you know, so much in the Trump presidency, we could preface our comment, this is not how it's usually done. This is not normal. He released a list of judges he would pick ahead of time, and he credits that to some degree of helping him win the White House. The list was changed once after he became president, and that was in 2017, to add, what, 5
He
names?
expanded it, yeah.
Yeah, including Judge Barrett, who he nominated to be a federal judge. So we're also getting in the first, out of the 4 people, she's the only one of the 4 who he nominated.
So he kind of has some ownership there.
Yeah.
And her place on the bench.
On it. So whether or not, I think Trump kind of sometimes likes to keep things that work, so maybe he would figure out a way to expand the list, but I think he likes the idea of always saying this is the list, even if the list comes and goes and you know, changes as time goes on. But as you know, one of the other things I'm just hoping that you could do as we're waiting either for my call and the appointment is, can you just explain to people, since all 4 finalists are appellate judges, what is it that an appellate judge does?
Right, the appellate judge is kind of the check on the district court judge. You know, the district court judges are kind of the workhorses. They're the ones who are coming in every day, hearing several cases, criminal, civil, taking them to trial, the trial court judges, you know. And then once a case is decided at the district court level, or you know, if a given decision is made at the lower level, that's when it moves up to the appellate court, and they will decide whether or not a sentence was appropriate or a conviction was appropriate, or if a given decision by a judge. I mean, for example, this issue we're going to be hearing with the sanctuary cities in a few months is there was a judge that put a nationwide injunction on some new restrictions on a grant that Attorney General Jeff Sessions would have put in play, part of the sanctuary cities fight. That's what they're going to be arguing about. Attorney General Sessions says it shouldn't apply nationwide. The justices are going to decide, well, should it be nationwide, or should it be limited to Chicago?
So do they always sit, there's like, what, 10 of them in each circuit? Or
yeah, I think it varies by circuit. We have
Yeah.
about 14 right now.
So do they always sit together, or do they break up into panels? or
Normally
what?
it's a panel of 3 judges, and they'll hear arguments in certain cases. Now in that one again, sometimes a 3-judge panel made a decision there, Attorney General Sessions challenged it, and sometimes you'll have what's an en banc or a full court hearing, and that's when all of the judges, or a majority of the judges, agree to take on this case and reconsider it. So usually it's 3 justices hearing arguments from lawyers from both sides. It's very restricted. It's, 15, 20, 30 minutes aside. That 30 minutes might even be much. And you know, oftentimes that's the time where you might hear a lawyer like just barely get started, and then the judges launch into questions for the
So
lawyer.
we all know it's a very, very big deal to get a case accepted in the Supreme Court of the
Very
United
big deal.
States.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
your call.
BBC. Hi, it's Lynn Sweet. Hi, it's Lynn Sweet. Well, hold
Good
on.
luck.
We'll see. Hello? Hello? Hello, hello? Well, maybe they will,
Technical difficulties.
technical difficulty. I'm going to just test. Hello, hello? See things. Well, maybe they will call back. Anyway, so I was asking you, it's a very big deal to get a case on court. Is it really? Oh. Hi, it's Lynn Sweet. Hello? Let me just, why don't you explain to people that what we're waiting for and who the finalists are? Let me take a quick look just to see.
But it is.
Hello. And if it doesn't work, I am so sorry. Hello? I hope they have a backup number for me, or they are doing it. Now, I know that people are in the East Room of the White House. I am looking at a picture. You know, we try to do these things, and sometimes it just doesn't work. We are now moments away from the announcement of a new nominee for the United States Supreme Court. Democrats are cranked up and ready to oppose whoever it is, most of them at least, and Republicans are ready to battle for it. On the floor of the Senate today, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell already had kind of preemptive comments on why the Democrats should go along with the pick, and Senator Chuck Schumer, who leads the Democrats, said, no, we may not go along with it. Too much is at stake. What other thoughts do you have as we're in these kind of moments here about what this means in the federal judiciary? Because the Supreme Court also runs the federal court system.
Right, and so, I mean, you were asking about getting a case to the Supreme Court. I mean, they don't take very many cases. In fact, I mean, you can pretty much, if anybody appeals to the Supreme Court, it's a very slim chance they're going to take it. There are obviously major issues. Obviously, a lot of people are watching abortion and the Affordable Care Act, like you said, but I think generally, no matter who the president picks here, most analysts are expecting this to move the court farther to the right than we've ever seen in our lifetimes, in anyone's lifetimes. I mean, it's going to be a
right, because here's what is for sure. One way or the other, President Trump is going to fill this vacancy.
right.
There is just, and so you may ask, well, how was it that when President Obama picked Merrick Garland to be a nominee, how come he never even got a vote? So let me explain that.
Please.
And again, because we're Chicago-centric, Merrick Garland, even though he's a judge in Washington, D.C., he grew up in a suburb of Chicago called Lincolnwood, went to Niles West High School. But because the Republicans controlled the Senate when Obama was president in that last year of his presidency, and while some matters in the Senate need 60 votes to pass when it comes to Supreme Court justice, you only need 50. So Senator McConnell, who is the leader, said that he won't even call Merrick Garland name for even a hearing.
Right.
So he was able to tie up this for a year. So let me ask one more thing. Marcus, I have a question. What shall I tell our viewers here that when President Trump starts speaking, which could be pretty soon, are we going to then cut to? Okay, so stay with us at suntimes.com. Stay with us whether you're watching us on our website, YouTube, or Facebook, because as soon as President Trump starts speaking, we're going to cut away to that to give you the benefit of listening through us what the announcement is. And actually, it seems like a close hold because we are moments away from the announcement. And John, no one has a name out yet.
No,
this is pretty remarkable.
Just looking through Twitter to see if anybody's really manage to break any news here. And one thing that I had seen was a lot of people commenting about just how remarkable and tightly controlled the White House has kept
But
this.
see, he's a showman, right?
Right.
He is the reality show TV star. He's kind of played this whole, he's played this as some shtick.
He knows what he's doing.
Since the day, what is it now, only 2 weeks ago, when Justice Kennedy said he's going to retire on July 31. Then he said, I'm going to get a real fast pick, and then he started teasing it out. I'm going to make, I called it almost the reveal. This is like...
well, and we saw that with the last time around,
with
too,
Gorsuch.
right? There have been a lot of comparisons given his previous profession, as, you know, he definitely seems to know what he's doing.
So sometimes it's not surprising that the names of the Final Four either leaked deliberately or not, because you do want some vetting to go on in public in case there's really something out there that no one knows.
Sure.
You know, even in this last week, this is a time. But now some of at least the Republican senators know. I know Orrin Hatch, who's the Utah senator, was on a show about maybe an hour ago saying that he knows who the pick is. It is a courtesy. And often when you tell something to somebody on the Hill, you might as well just announce it because there's so many leaks. But that's not the case in this case. And again, we're just moments away. People are in the East Room. As I'm looking up, you can see there are some Republican senators there. I see Senator Lindsey Graham is there. Now, whoever comes out, whoever the new nominee is going to be, will probably see a spouse, partner, children in the audience when they come out. You know, there's always a backstory as how they managed to get them to the White House and no one saw them leave.
Right.
Right. It's one of the reasons that people think it's not Amy Barrett is there is a belief that she's not in Washington.
There is, and that's the very reason why I don't know if reporters were staking out her house or exactly where they saw her, but yeah, that's an obvious way to read the tea leaves here. If she's not in Washington, you know, it's not looking good for her.
Well, right, because I don't think they're going to do a live remote.
No,
you want someone who's in there. So there is a whole campaign that the White House has prepared to, in a sense, roll it out. They have a Sherpa, a former senator named John Kyle of Arizona, who's going to help her. They have a Absolutely. You know, so just for an example, by the way, of the reaction, we already have a statement, and they've been coming all day. Eleanor Smeal, apparently there is some leaking out, I'm guessing, because we have a statement, some statements are coming making a reaction as if it might be Brett Kavanaugh. So, you know, we don't have that confirmed, but let's see how that...
Can we...
Well, what do we have? Okay, AP is reporting through a source that Trump does indeed intend to nominate Brett Kavanaugh. So let's tell our viewers a little bit about Brett Kavanaugh. Okay. He sits in the D.C. Court of Appeals. He lives in Maryland, and what was interesting about him is that he's 53 years old, and he went to Yale. One of the things that President Trump said that he wanted was somebody from an Ivy League law school. John.
Right. And with Brett Kavanaugh, he's getting that. And I think we had a couple Notre Dame grads on the list, but if that was really key for the president, that was something that he'd be looking for.
Right. So Amy Barrett went to Notre Dame for law school. We had the other one, Judge Hardiman, who was seen as the finalist and the runner-up when Gorsuch was picked. He went to Georgetown for law school, Notre Dame undergrad. And the fourth one, Judge Kutledge, he went to the University of Michigan. I mean, the Supreme Court right now, I think out of the 9 justices, I think almost all of them, or most of them, do have an Ivy League credential. President Trump is stuck in a way on Ivy League. As a lot of our listeners may know, he often refers to his attendance in the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. But by the way, he only went there as a transfer student, but you know, the degree is the degree on it. So what do we know? So he was once a law clerk for Judge Anthony Kennedy. This is if
He
it's
was.
indeed is Brett Kavanaugh. Tell us a few other things, John.
Well, just looking at my notes here, I mean, I think he's got some pretty interesting background. You know, he worked for Ken Starr, is my understanding, and during the impeachment proceedings for President Clinton, which could also be fodder for some interesting discussions with the current White House.
Yes.
And
Because
you know,
here, and this is why I kind of thought he might not have it. And again, it's right top of the hour, so we might be cutting away in
Sure.
a moment here. One of the things that is likely to happen if the Democrats get control of the House is that there will be impeachment proceedings starting against President Trump again. So if people don't know, impeachment starts with the House Judiciary Committee, and then that sets the ball rolling. Now, everybody's been seated in the White House. It looks like things are quieted down. And again, we're going to be cutting away as soon as we see President Trump goes down. So if he has a judge who was involved in the Ken Starr investigation of Bill Clinton, what do you think that means?
well, you know, a lot of people have pointed to comments that he made later on after being involved in the impeachment of President Clinton. That he later went to work for President Bush and got perhaps a closer look at the life of the President of the United States and everything that the President has to deal with, and later suggested that maybe presidents shouldn't have to deal with criminal investigations or civil lawsuits while they're in office. Maybe that's inappropriate, and maybe those things should have to wait until the President leaves office. And so that may have caught the White House
Okay, and
attention
we
as well.
see President Donald Trump is approaching the East Room. He's on that red carpet walking way into the podium, and we're now going to just listen to President Donald Trump make the announcement.
My fellow Americans, tonight I speak to you from the East Room of the White House regarding one of the most profound responsibilities of the President of the United States, and that is the selection of a Supreme Court justice. I've often heard that other than matters of war and peace, this is the most important decision a president will make. The Supreme Court is entrusted with the safeguarding of the crown jewel of our republic, the Constitution of the United States. 12 days ago, Justice Anthony Kennedy informed me of his decision to take senior status on the Supreme Court, opening a new vacancy. For more than 4 decades, Justice Kennedy served our nation with incredible passion and devotion. I'd like to thank Justice Kennedy for a lifetime of distinguished service. In a few moments, I will announce my selection for Justice Kennedy's replacement. This is the second time I have been faced with this task. Last year, I nominated Judge Neil Gorsuch to replace the late, great Justice Antonin Scalia. I chose Justice Gorsuch because I knew that he, just like Justice Scalia, would be a faithful servant of our Constitution. We are honored to be joined tonight by Justice Scalia's beloved wife, Maureen. Maureen? Thank you, Maureen. Both Justice Kennedy and Justice Scalia were appointed by a president who understood that the best defense of our liberty and a judicial branch immune from political prejudice were judges that apply the Constitution as written. That president happened to be Ronald Reagan. For this evening's announcement, we are joined by Ronald Reagan's Attorney General, Edwin Meese. Ed? And Ed, I speak for everyone. Thank you for everything you've done to protect our nation's great legal heritage. In keeping with President Reagan's legacy, I do not ask about a nominee's personal opinions. What matters is not a judge's political views, but whether they can set aside those views to do what the law and the Constitution require. I am pleased to say that I have found, without doubt, such a person. Tonight, it is my honor and privilege to announce that I will nominate Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. I know the people in this room very well. They do not stand and give applause like that very often, so they have some respect. And Brett's wife, Ashley, and their two daughters, Margaret and Liza, have joined us on the podium. And thank you and congratulations to you as a family. Thank you. Judge Kavanaugh has impeccable credentials, unsurpassed qualifications, and a proven commitment to equal justice under the law. A graduate of Yale College and Yale Law School, Judge Kavanaugh currently teaches at Harvard, Yale, and Georgetown. Throughout legal circles, he is considered a judge's judge, a true thought leader among his peers. He is a brilliant jurist with a clear and effective writing style, universally regarded as one of the finest and sharpest legal minds of our time. And just like Justice Gorsuch, he excelled as a clerk for Justice Kennedy. That's great. Thank you. Yeah. Judge Kavanaugh has devoted his life to public service. For the last 12 years, he has served as a judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals with great distinction, authoring over 300 opinions which have been widely admired for their skill, insight, and rigorous adherence to the law. Among those opinions are more than a dozen that the Supreme Court has adopted as the law of the land. Beyond his great renown as a judge, he is active in his community. He coaches CYO basketball, serves meals to needy families, and, having learned from his mom, who was a school teacher in D.C., tutors children at local elementary schools. There is no one in America more qualified for this position and no one more deserving. I want to thank the senators on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, for their consultation and advice during the selection process. This incredibly qualified nominee deserves a swift confirmation and robust bipartisan support. The rule of law is our nation's proud heritage. It is the cornerstone of our freedom. It is what guarantees equal justice. And the Senate now has the chance to protect this glorious heritage by sending Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. And now, Judge, the podium is yours.
Mr. President, thank you. Throughout this process, I have witnessed firsthand your appreciation for the vital role of the American judiciary. No president has ever consulted more widely or talked with more people from more backgrounds to seek input about a Supreme Court nomination. Mr. President, I am grateful to you, and I'm humbled by your confidence in me. Thank you. 30 years ago, President Reagan nominated Anthony Kennedy to the Supreme Court. The framers established that the Constitution is designed to secure the blessings of liberty. Justice Kennedy devoted his career to securing liberty. I am deeply honored to be nominated to fill his seat on the Supreme Court. My mom and dad are here. I am their only child. When people ask what it's like to be an only child, I say, it depends on who your parents are. I was lucky. My mom was a teacher. In the 1960s and 70s, she taught history at two largely African-American public high schools in Washington, D.C., McKinley Tech and H.D. Woodson. Her example taught me the importance of equality for all Americans. My mom was a trailblazer. When I was 10, she went to law school and became a prosecutor. My introduction to law came at our dinner table when she practiced her closing arguments. Her trademark line was, "Use your common sense. What rings true? What rings false?" That's good advice for a juror and for a son. One of the few women prosecutors of that time, she overcame barriers and became a trial judge. The president introduced me tonight as Judge Kavanaugh, but to me, that title will always belong to my mom. My dad went to law school at night while working full-time. He has an unparalleled work ethic and has passed down to me his passion for playing and watching sports. I love him dearly. The motto of my Jesuit high school was "Men for Others." I've tried to live that creed. I've spent my career in public service from the executive branch and the White House to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. I've served with 17 other judges, each of them a colleague and a friend. My judicial philosophy is straightforward. A judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written, and a judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history and tradition and precedent. For the past 11 years, I've taught hundreds of students, primarily at Harvard Law School. I teach that the Constitution's separation of powers protects individual liberty. And I remain grateful to the dean who hired me, Justice Elena Kagan. As a judge, I hire 4 law clerks each year. I look for the best. My law clerks come from diverse backgrounds and points of view. I am proud that a majority of my law clerks have been women. I am part of the vibrant Catholic community in the DC area. The members of that community disagree about many things, but we are united by a commitment to serve. Father John Ensler is here. 40 years ago, I was an altar boy for Father John. These days, I help him serve meals to the homeless at Catholic Charities. I have 2 spirited daughters, Margaret and Liza. Margaret loves sports, and she loves to read. Liza loves sports, and she loves to talk. I have tried to create bonds with my daughters like my dad created with me. For the past 7 years, I have coached my daughters' basketball teams. The girls on the team call me Coach K. I am proud of our Blessed Sacrament team that just won the city championship. My daughters and I also go to lots of games. Our favorite memory was going to the historic Notre Dame-UConn women's basketball game at this year's Final Four. Unforgettable. My wife, Ashley, is a West Texan, a graduate of Abilene Cooper Public High School and the University of Texas. She is now the town manager of our community. We met in 2001 when we both worked in the White House. Our first date was on September 10th, 2001. The next morning, I was a few steps behind her as the Secret Service shouted at all of us to sprint out the front gates of the White House because there was an inbound plane. In the difficult weeks that followed, Ashley was a source of strength for President Bush and for everyone in this building. Through bad days and so many better days since then, she has been a great wife and an inspiring mom. I thank God every day for my family. Tomorrow, I begin meeting with members of the Senate, which plays an essential role in this process. I will tell each senator that I revere the Constitution. I believe that an independent judiciary is the crown jewel of our constitutional republic. If confirmed by the Senate, I will keep an open mind in every case, and I will always strive to preserve the Constitution of the United States and the American rule of law. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, welcome back to the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, where we are giving you our live coverage of President Donald Trump's announcement of a new Supreme Court nominee. And now we know he picked a former law clerk to Justice Kennedy, Brett Kavanaugh, and I'm hoping somebody could turn down the TV over there so we could hear, if you could go do that. Anyway, again, joining me at this big night for the Supreme Court nominee is John Seidel, who's the Sun-Times federal court reporter. And so we finally met for the first time the new nominee. It looks like just
And his family?
Amy Barrett is not going to be the pick.
Not yet.
Not yet,
Not
maybe
this time.
later. But so we just heard Trump's speech was kind of boilerplate still that he read from a teleprompter, but boy, listen to all the points that that it seemed that Kavanaugh, hit. It was very skillfully crafted. Former altar boy. He coaches his daughter basketball team. There's a big attempt here, John, to humanize him, don't you think?
Well, and to kind of present the all-American family as well, I think is important here.
2 daughters. He coaches the basketball team. He kind of went there, which is, on one hand, he talked about very bluntly about being a Catholic. He's part, he said, of the vibrant, quote unquote, Catholic community in Washington, D.C. That is interesting because we know, without saying it, that abortion is one of the big unsaid issues here.
It's going to be an important issue
I've been getting already, in the moment since his name came out, there's a torrent of react from both pro-life, the leading pro-life organizations, and the abortion rights groups. But this theme of his religion has come there. Part of it because it's his life story. He went to a Jesuit high school, altar boy. Kids go to coaches for Blessed Sacrament. But then let's go to what I think might have been one of the most important things, where he said the judge must interpret the Constitution as written, and he promised to keep an open mind. What struck you about the comments from Judge Kavanaugh?
Well, from Judge Kavanaugh in particular, and maybe this is really more your department than anything, one thing that I've read a lot about and I think hampered his chances early on, obviously not critically, was his experience in the Bush White House. And as we know, Trump has some animosity toward the Bush family. I noticed that although he talked emotionally about his experience on 9/11 and with his wife, I don't think I heard him mention President Bush by name, and I also heard him tell President Trump that no president has ever consulted more widely, basically sought more input. I thought that was interesting, coming from a longtime staffer of President Bush. So those things stuck out to me, but also I think he talked about his judicial philosophy. He said a judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law, which I think obviously, I mean, it's...
Well, that is what they all tell you that. This is what people say, and then they get on the bench and they're judicial activists.
Correct, yeah, depending on which way the decision goes, correct. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see from here. I think he was really seen as more, of the 4 that were being considered, I think he was the closest to Roberts, right? If you're looking at the 4, Amy Barrett might have been farthest to the right, Kavanaugh might have been, I'm hesitating to say left because it's still far on the right-hand spectrum. Is that your interpretation too?
Well, maybe. Part of it is, and by the way, I guess when we're talking about the biography of Kavanaugh, and he hit on some of the high points, we'll get back to it. He didn't mention he worked for Ken Starr.
He didn't mention that either, no.
But I don't want to forget to talk about, just to close the loop on Judge Barrett. Okay, so she's not picked. What do you see as the future for her as she sits in your courthouse in the Dirksen Brothers building that you're out every day?
Yeah, she's going to go back to being an appellate court judge. She's going to be hearing cases. They're not all going to be, blockbuster cases that could change the nation. She's going to hear her cases. She's going to author her opinions. But again, I think we have seen in her writings in years past, maybe she had this moment in mind as she was writing, and certainly, I can't imagine going through this experience coming this close to joining the Supreme Court. I got to think it's going to be.
Well, one of the things, and I hope that you look at suntimes.com, because John and I have a story about what might be ahead about Judge Barrett. And again, for all the Supreme Court stories, go to suntimes.com. Follow us on Twitter, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or at Sun Times. We will have a lot of Supreme Court coverage on there. So one of the other things I thought that Judge Kavanaugh stressed here that was interesting, because a speech like this is vetted. There's not one sentence that goes in here that wasn't really weighed and thought about. So he talked about how he teaches at Harvard. Again, that Trump loves the Ivy League. And he mentioned that, who hired him at Harvard?
Elena Kagan.
Justice Elena Kagan, who was the dean of the Harvard Law School. Kagan is appointed by a Democrat liberal judge. I don't know what that gets him in terms of a Senate vote, but maybe in the court of public opinion.
Do you think?
It does what?
I mean, right. I mean, and again, this is more your turn. But do you think that helps kind of somehow endear him or help clear the path? I mean, is that what that was geared toward?
It's a try, but I think it won't work.
Sure.
We're going to be following closely whether former altar boy, now judge, now the Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, does indeed get confirmed. We have the midterm elections coming up, John, and all this gets very much wrapped into turnout. We have a lot of reaction. As I said, there's already, let me do one thing, because we're going to wrap up soon. There's already in the focus, it is going to be on these red state Democratic senators, especially in Indiana, Joe Connolly, North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp, and Joe Manchin from West Virginia. These are the three Democrats who are the insurance, because it is not clear at all that Trump can hold the 50 to 51 Democrats again Senator John McCain, who still may not show up. Anyway, we have a lot of ferocious battles for the next Supreme Court nominee ahead. You'll be covering Judge Amy Barrett back in Dirksen Federal Courthouse. I'm going to go back to Washington soon. In the meantime, from everyone here at the Sun-Times News headquarters in Chicago's West Loop, thank you so much.